Hello, my name is Samantha Schafer from Drexel University, and I will be presenting on acoustic coupling pads for controlled ultrasound neuromodulation exposure. My co-authors are Norman Spivak from UCLA and Mark Schafer from Drexel University. Just some disclosures to get out of the way. This work was sponsored by BrainSonics Corporation, and it is currently patent pending. So background and motivation for this work. Neuromodulation studies often require unexposed control groups to limit placebo and other confounding effects. One of the more difficult effects to get around are the audible effects that the subject might experience during treatment. Audible sound includes the clicking sound the transducer makes when energized and the auditory sensation the subject might hear during treatment. Some previously documented methods for creating sham conditions during studies include not turning the transducer on, flipping the transducer over, not applying gel to complete the mechanical connection between the transducer and the patient, using white noise masking, completely decoupling the transducer and hovering it above this patient's skull. These methods all require that the operator be aware of the protocols, which makes it a single blind study. In addition, none of these methods fully address the auditory effects of the neuromodulation treatment, nor do they facilitate double-blind studies. So a new method is needed for controlling ultrasound exposure while maintaining the auditory cue. So we thought, what is something that can be manipulated independently from the transducer and the experimental setup? And something that can be manipulated is the coupling pad, the medium that is put in between the transducer and the patient's skull to create that mechanical connection for the ultrasound to pass through. Manipulating the coupling pads instead of the transducer would facilitate sham treatment groups in either single blind or double blind formats. We have developed acoustic coupling pads that would facilitate these kinds of experiments by selectively transmitting ultrasound into the subject without affecting the audible sound from the transducer. So we do have a few design requirements for these pads, the first of which is that there are two different types. The first is transmitting, which means it allows ultrasound to pass through, and the second is non-transmitting, so it effectively blocks the ultrasound. These two types, regardless of which one they are, should be indistinguishable from one another through visual inspection and casual manipulation. That way, the operator doesn't know which pad is which throughout the course of the study. The base material should exhibit low acoustic loss. The blocking material should provide acoustic attenuation of -40 dB or more. And then the pads themselves should be mechanically stable, flexible, durable, and have the ability to be sanitized so they can be used from patient to patient throughout the entire study. So we found a skin-safe 2-part silicone with little to no acoustic attenuation for the base material. On the right-hand side of the screen on the top is a schematic for the transmitting pad. As you can see, it's just plain material. So that is the transmitting version. And then we had an open cell foam that was cut into the shape of a disc that was embedded into the non-transmit pad, which is down here on the bottom. And again, that foam is going to block the transmission of ultrasound, and that was embedded into the base material during production. So here I have a short video of what the final pads look like. On the left is the non-transmitting pad, and on the right is the transmitting pad. As you can see, they are indistinguishable from one another in appearance and have met the other design requirements for structure, flexibility, and durability. They were made to couple to a BrainSonics transducer, and in this video, I have a non-functional demo transducer being used. To couple to the transducer, there is a ring on the inside, and the transducer has a lip that the ring nests into. We did send these pads off to a third party to be handled under experimental environments. The operator was unable to distinguish them via casual manipulation or visual inspection, and we had a participant who could not distinguish the difference, either sensation or audible, between the exposure conditions. In use, these would come to the facility as a set. They would have a serial number and would be labeled A or B. The researchers would conduct their study using the pads. Both sham and active groups would receive the same protocols, and then at the end of the study, we would unblind the data. So after production, each pad is individually tested for its efficacy in both transmitting and blocking ultrasound. Again, the design goal for the acoustic attenuation or blocking pad was a -40 dB, which is a factor of 10,000 in intensity, and is close to 0 dB for the transmitting pad. 20 sets of transmit pads and non-transmit pads were fabricated and tested. We tested them in a water tank for acoustic transmission loss. We used a 60 millimeter diameter, 80 millimeter focus circular disc transducer operated at 650 kilohertz and a standard raison hydrophone. The transmitting pads averaged -0.41 dB loss, and all of the non-transmit pads met the required -40 dB loss with an average of -48.61 dB. And you can see here in the graph that with the standard deviation, we had some that reached even higher than that, over 50 dB as well. So in conclusion, the acoustic coupling pads create identical testing situations for single-blind and double-blind studies for neuromodulation treatments, so that neither the patient nor the operator administering the treatment can distinguish which patient group received the ultrasound and which did not. Thank you so much for your time.